You see all of the accolades we've won as a business, all the stuff I have kind of personally got from the business, but you don't see that we have bills on bills on bills every single day that we have to keep up with. And we've been able to consistently make it to this point, day in, day out, just by being resilient. And I would say business is such a weird way to say this, but I feel like it's truly a gambling game. Like you're gambling every single day. And that's kind of been our way of being able to get to the point where we're at in this business is just by gambling every single day. Like we're taking a risk, we're taking a bet. Even when it comes to the staff we have in the company, they're taking a bet on the company being here because we're a startup. Like we don't have 100 years on us to guarantee that this is going to happen. And that's kind of why we've been able to get to the point we're at, where I have a really good organization, a really good team around me ultimately.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Forward to Extraordinary, a part of the Strictly From Nowhere podcast experiment. I'm your host, Justin Abrams, a serial entrepreneur in pursuit of wisdom with the goal of sharing it with all of you. And today is no different. You know, one of the things that I think a lot of us can really relate to is our pastime with youth sports. You know, in high school, after my high school days, self-proclaimed athlete, pursued all of the highest accolades that I could in athletics, state championships. I did my best to do the things that I did. But man, is that a pastime? Man, is that something that I wish that I could continue to do and participate in a meaningful way outside of like adult intramurals or like doing something a little extracurricular. It's really hard to kind of find our way in sports, but some of us are lucky enough to make careers out of it. And even fewer of us are lucky enough to make businesses out of those careers and find substantial ways to bring not only our passions, but our accomplishments into a business form and gift it to others. And so when I come across entrepreneurs that kind of stitch all of that together, somebody who really specialized in sports at a young age, somebody who pursued a professional career in athletics, and then somebody that also found the opportunity, mission, vision, and dream to build a business out of the things that they experienced, well, that's Zechariah Thomas for us for today. The founder of Swift Hockey, a category I'm super fascinated in as just a fan. Like, who doesn't like hockey? You'd have to be nuts not to like hockey. And so for me, man, we're going to make this less about hockey. We're going to make this more about you and your journey from zero to market with Swift. And man, Zechariah Thomas, welcome to the episode of Forward to Extraordinary. I can't wait to unpack your zero to market story.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here.
Yo, it's a pleasure to have you here. For those of us that don't know who Zechariah is, a quick Google search or a quick AI search, whatever your favorite is, I'm sure you'll find your way to figuring out all about this man. But before I steal your show, Zechariah, I often like to begin these conversations with a little bit of you, man. What makes you unique? Tell me about your human experience. And before we get into business, just what makes you you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In my early days, I would say I moved 10 minutes down the block from a small city called Whitby to Oshawa out in Canada, where I moved that 10-minute move, I was culture shocked by hockey. Like that was honestly what happened at the age of about 10 years old. And I had to fit in. Like I had to have one of those hockey jackets. I had to play hockey. And that was kind of my start into everything. And hockey from there, I've kind of went all the way up to the ranks, played junior hockey, I played a little bit of pro hockey. And there was always such a consistent problem within hockey. And there's two big things. It's either extremely expensive or it's even more expensive. Yeah. It was really
Yes,
just a
sir.
price thing, like keeping everyone out of the game. And that was something I kept seeing equipment break over and over again. And especially on the hockey stick side, and they're $400-$500 products. And that was kind of my start into creating this business, creating this company, and creating my passion ultimately.
You know, I love this story. You know, I don't know if they have this in Canada. I don't even know if they have this kind of anywhere else, but here on Long Island, there are a couple of really big categories of sports. One is lacrosse, another is for sure hockey. And the reason why those exist, one's football for sure, but these are cash intensive sports for youth families. And so there's a couple of really cool businesses here that really were in like the consignment, secondhand adventure, It's called Play It Again Sports, where like I could bring my old equipment and they resell it. They'll buy it from you, whatever the market value is. They put a little bit of their cost associated on top of it, and they'll sell it back to the community. And one of the things that I remember just in youth sports in general was getting new gear that was actually used by somebody else because of the cost of how prohibitive it is. It's like ungodly expensive for the equipment. Then you pay your club fees. Then you have to pay your travel fees. Like depending on how good you get with some of these sports, man, you got to be like independently wealthy as a family to support this. And like, first of all, like shout out to your family and shout out to all the families out there that prioritize youth sports and figure out how to divide the paycheck up to try and give us all the opportunity to play. But yeah, man, this is a big problem. And so what an interesting original, problem that you took on to solve. I'm curious though, like, why the hockey stick? Why not the pads? Why not the gloves? Why not the skates? Like there's lots of degradation in all of the things, all of the uniform based things. And there's so much progression in the technology, right? Like helmets today are not what helmets when I was playing with, are not what helmets were when our parents were playing youth sports. And so why build the business in the specific niche category of hockey sticks that you went for?
Yeah, hockey sticks it was always something I was super passionate about. Like that's honestly like the most important thing. And it's one of those few equipments, like we'll look at NHL players and the highest level players, and they're still using their equipment from them being 14 years old. So it wasn't necessarily a cost that was ongoing, but the hockey sticks, they break, like the average player is breaking 12 to 15 a season.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're going through $400 each stick. Like they're almost going through a whole league fee just in sticks. And that was kind of the problem I saw over and over again that like I needed to fix. Like I need to find a solution for that problem. And all the other equipment, even for my personal gear, like I'm still using gear I'm like
Probably.
from my childhood. Like that was kind of always the whole scenario where most players just don't change their gear. It's just comfortable.
I mean, I'm the same way. I'm like a lifelong rock climber, and I like
Yeah.
still have some of the same original gear because like A, it doesn't need to be replaced. B, it's like kind of superstitious at this point. It's nostalgic. There's memories associated to the gear that we have. I mean, you remember every loss and victory just from the gloves that you wear, like whatever the scenario might be. So I rock with that fully. You know, I'm sure that there are countless players out there that could have made this their problem to solve. Why you? Like, what was the series of events that showed up in your life that was like, yo, nobody else is solving this. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and you know what? There was a bunch of people that have tried to do this, to be completely transparent with you, and they've all failed. And I remember we were posted on an article a long time ago by one of the biggest publications in the industry. And for some reason it said in the article another NHL player that tried a very similar thing and failed and the company ended up folding. And that really opened up my eyes to like understand that this is a hard industry. Like this is a hard industry. Like someone that has NHL money, they have all these accolades backed on them. And why am I going to be the person that's going to compete with them? That was my biggest thing. And it was a scenario where it was like, I'm extremely competitive. Also, like I'm extremely competitive. That's kind of the athlete in me, but I was just so passionate about what we're doing. And it's one of the few sticks where I was still playing when I made it. Like it was a player made a I made the stick for myself. And there's only a couple few companies like that I say like really have that is Nike, where Phil Bowerman, Phil Knight, like they made the shoes for themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what made it really easy for me to sell and market the company because I was super passionate about making the best product possible that I was able to use in games and throughout everything.
And so if you kind of think about it, are you under the impression from these other businesses that were built by other players that like it really was just to build a stick competitor and not necessarily build it for their specific use case? It sounds like what you did was like you solved your own problem, which was like I'm spending a ridiculous amount of money replacing these sticks. I need to find a more cost efficient way. But while I'm finding a more cost efficient way, we're going to leverage technology. Because correct me if I'm wrong, what you built is kind of the blend of all of those worlds, which is something super affordable, uh, and something that is embracing what is available as far as technology for today. And so I'd love to hear a little bit of like the differentiator in comparison to the other businesses that failed. Like, what did they do that led them to fail, that you went in a different direction to ultimately have some success here?
Yeah, it's been insane. Like the journey we have gone on to get to this point every single day, it's absurd. Especially like me being a younger entrepreneur, it's and going up against some of these giants that have been here for 100 plus years. But we're really mission oriented, especially within the company and our team right now. Like we're super mission oriented, where we really want to make the sport more accessible and more affordable. Like that's almost one of the most important things for me as a company is we want to make such a good product, but that product also has to be priced properly. It has to be priced properly where people can buy it and they're getting that good feeling within making a product. And that was everything to me. Was to really just make such a solid company at the end of the day.
And I think that's probably important. That probably is the marquee differentiator. You know, there were probably other businesses in the categories, as you've admitted transparently, that maybe built it for the wrong reasons. They maybe built it because it looked like an investable grab. It looked like an opportunity to just like, maybe posture. And like, what pro athlete doesn't want to say, I own a stick company? Especially a hockey player, pro athlete doesn't want to own like their own hockey stick company. Like, it may have been for some disingenuous reasons. And ultimately the consumer sees through all that. The consumer is looking for a high quality product at a price point that they can afford. And so sometimes when we get that a little bit misconstrued at the founder level, at the business level, and we're not really mission focused, we're not cause backed, we don't have the right intentions, we're not innovating with the right goals, the consumer just feels that. They see through all of that. And then it just ends up being like another choice. And the incumbents in that space, like you've said, have been around for 100 years. So like, what
Yeah,
is really
yeah.
the differentiating factor? And right before the show, I asked you if we could cover a specific topic, because I think you're doing a really good job of owning content and distribution. And I think that those are really incredibly strong plays and probably something that your business is built off of. And it's not so much the influencer strategy or like the ambassador, like the endorsement from the player that maybe built another thing. It's more about like the business, and you're just evangelizing the business and its value and what you've created through you, because it's founder led. Like, if you're not going to own the story, who's going to own the story? It's not just like a check mark from your favorite hockey player. It's more, I experienced the problem. I solved it for myself. The solution was so good, I decided to share it with the world. And so I
Yeah.
love that. So I wonder, what is content and distribution looking like for you and for the business? And how do you see this as your defensible thing as you guys are growing?
It's been content and distribution has been the only reason we've been able to win. That's been the number one reason where we out volume every single one of our competitors on posting, even the billion-dollar corporations that we're going
Believe it.
against, we out volume them every single aspect. And especially when it comes to the content and the variations. In the early days when I first started the company, we're still not venture capital backed, we're not private equity backed. We can't afford a big influencer, we can't afford the biggest athlete. And I was our cheapest asset. I was the cheapest person to film all the content with in the early days. And that was the scenario where it's like, we only have one option. We have one option for me to film content, for me to make as much content as possible, or we have nothing to post. So I went all in posting content. And even if we look at the structure of our company versus all of our competitors, we're mostly a media company. We're really just a media company. And I think every company nowadays, the new companies, you almost have to be a media company. Um, I would say 90% of our staff are marketing and video and content people. And that's where we've been able to find our leverage and been able to grow really fast and rapidly because we are able to make content faster and quicker without going and hiring an external company to come film for us. Like we're filming content every single day. Even as we speak, my team's filming content. We're filming content all day, every day.
Who's like your favorite business thought leader today?
Yeah, there's there's a lot, and I consume a lot of content, like
Me too,
especially when
man.
it comes to the business world, where I have no schooling background. Um, I have no business background other than just failing a bunch of times, and I would say, the books have been really helpful. Like I read a lot of books across the board, but the biggest business mentor I would say Harmozy is definitely one of the big ones. He's one of the greats. I would say probably the best to ever do it, especially with the way he teaches knowledge. Um, and I get really detailed and weird with some of the small entrepreneurs as well. Like that's kind of my thing is like the really small pages, the really small niche entrepreneurs where like that's where we're actually finding out how to use certain systems. And I picked one of my systems. I was watching the guy's documentary. And I saw him using a system where it was like ClickUp, for example. Shout out to ClickUp, but
Sure,
we're
yeah.
using ClickUp as a system, and we went and implemented that right within our team, and like that's how we've been able to innovate and do things is because we see something and we can innovate it right away and add it to our system. But yeah, we consume a lot of content. Like that's kind of my biggest thing. So
I love that, man, and I love that you brought up Hormozy. That's probably the perfect person. It's like who I had in my brain. I was like, is he going to say Gary Vaynerchuk? Is he going to say Hormozy? Like, who's he going to say? So Hormozy is a perfect one because I piggyback that on what you said a moment ago, which is like every business is really just a media company wrapped in a product, service, or solution.
yeah,
That is like Hormozy 101. That's Gary Vaynerchuk 101. Like you have to understand that distribution is the defensible mode, especially because if you think about the age of AI, I don't really, I'm not concerned with somebody's patent or intellectual property. I can make anything today. I can figure out how to make, manufacture, distribute anything. The thing that's going to separate your business from the next guy that rips you off is your ability to distribute it, is your ability to create an emotional connection, to develop community, to really build an audience that values you and your product and what you've created second to none. That's like classic Hormozy structure. That's $100 million offer. Like that's the book 101. And so I love that you said him. I think a tip of the hat. I'd love to have that guy on the show one day, but we all can dream about something. You know what I'm saying? But I love
yeah,
that. And it's one piece of advice, man. So I'd love to bring this back a little bit. The show is always about the trials and tribulations that we've been through, the failures along the way. You've talked and alluded a little bit to some of those stuff, but I'd love to dig in if you'll indulge me. Um, I'm sure this wasn't blue sky. I'm sure the first product was no good. I'm sure you have had problems along the way, things that make you doubt being in business on a daily basis. For me, this is like hour to hour. What the hell am I doing here? But there's no other path for Justin. And so I'd love to know a little bit about, the bad and the ugly side of building the business and some of the struggles that you had to overcome, because it's not all just about social media and telling this bright-eyed story. It really is about the difficult stuff that keeps us awake at night. So wisdom led, what are some of the stuff that you have been through, and what are some of the wisdom that you could share to others that are trying to build a business like this?
yeah. I've been through it all. Like I don't even know where to start in entrepreneurship as a whole. Where it's like you get it. It's every single day there's a problem. And like I don't think I've woken up to like turn over to my phone and not see fires like I'm about to put out every day. And
Amen,
that's
dude.
kind of been the life for the last 5 years for me, honestly. Um, but I honestly think like I don't think entrepreneurship's for everyone. Like I wouldn't suggest being an entrepreneur to anyone, honestly. I think it's a really certain type of individual that should be an entrepreneur. I think every single day entrepreneurship is going to be fires, and sometimes it may be better being that number two person in a company rather than the person that's going to take all the heat, the person that doesn't have to deal with the bills and everything. But ultimately, like in our original days, how I got my start, especially into Swift, is I was an e-commerce guy. Like I was an e-commerce drop shipping guy. As soon as COVID started, like that was kind of the first thing I started in. And when it comes to business side, I did, I failed so many businesses in e-commerce. Like that was one of the biggest learning things for me. And I did well in a couple businesses as well, and ended up selling my first business at about 17, 18 years old. And that was my start into everything in a sense. And me selling my business at a young age, I went pretty crazy. Like I bought everything. Like I literally bought everything I possibly could at such a young age. And going through that really opened my eyes. Like that was kind of the hardest things I've gone through, blowing through hundreds of thousands of dollars and just no, I have not much to show for it at all. Not much at all to show for it. And that was kind of my journey into entrepreneurship where I owe a lot of my success to that experience. And if I didn't have that experience, I don't think we would be at the point where we're at right now within the company. And I blew so much money. And when I started, I wish we would have had it back now when we're starting, we're bootstrapping the company, going through all the pain points every single day. And we've done everything to survive within Swift. And like as you kind of said, like you kind of day to day, like we're actually like we're week to week. And everything we move, everything we operate is completely week to week and going through pains and fires that we have 10, 20, $30,000 bills every day. Like that's kind of our life right now. And trying to find and innovate different ways to get rid of product, bring in traffic, continue to grow the company has always been the problem. So
I've had hundreds of episodes at this point, as you can imagine. And the resounding thing that folks wish that they had was financial knowledge, like just how to manage money better, how to manage the income, how to manage debt, how to manage expenses, like just the things that you and I know now from just getting punched in the face one too many times and running a business. Like that is the thing. And so like I implore people who are thinking about building a business to develop some type of financial competence first. Run a simulation. AI is great for this. Give me a scenario. How would I manage the money through this scenario? Because lots of times we don't even realize how many moves there are available on the board. You just like you just run to put out the fire, but some fire is controllable. Some fire is like necessary for new growth. And like
yeah,
what do I need to do with this money? What do I need to do with this debt? What do I need to do with this investor's cash? Like, how do I be responsible? Financial literacy is like not something that comes to most of us easily. And the ones that do have financial literacy are not necessarily the ones that make the greatest entrepreneurs. You really have to try and find a little bit of a blend. So here's another question around just like financial competence and doing all these things correctly in the vein of giving wisdom to others. In my earliest days of building this business, we took on substantial debt. I leveraged the house. My partner leveraged his house. I took on a small business loan. It's one of those things that I wish we never did. But like, man, that wet blanket on my face caused us to make the decisions and the calls that led us to build a multi-7-figure sustainable business with recurring revenue, gainful employment, like all the things that you would hope for from a victory story. And we're still not to our goals. And so I wonder for you, not that you have to reveal like the dirty truth of mismanaging money, but what are some of the things that you learned along the way about managing cash? Your business is a heck of a lot different than mine. Mine is really about bodies. I'm a service-based business. It's about bodies and talent. My biggest overhead is paying payroll. I think your business has a couple of additional factors that are different from mine. So if we're talking about from a manufacturer's perspective, you also have direct to consumer as far as e-commerce perspective, like their surface area of software, their surface area of people, like you got a lot more moving parts than I have in my lean business. Tell me about how you are managing money throughout the business, especially from that manufacturing part. That to me seems like a pretty substantial aspect of the business that I myself don't have experience with.
Yeah, it's honestly, I picked probably one of the hardest businesses to go into. Like when it comes to the e-commerce and what we have done, is where there's you're right. There's so many different moving parts, um, especially with what went on with this tariff situation. With like, I'm Canadian. I live in Florida now, but like we have had to innovate so much every single day to try and get to this point where now we're not a nine-figure company, but we have two offices in two different countries. um, like that's kind of where we're at, where we have to do certain things to innovate and stay alive, where we can't ship across the border anymore. That's kind of been the biggest problem. We can't ship across the border, so we have to open an office. I had to run across the border. I had to drive across the border every single day to make to have both of
Wow.
our locations open. And that was kind of what we had to do for years, and like a year plus, to make that work. And now we're consistently trying to fix all those problems, but those problems just get bigger. The
Of
problems
course.
are actually just getting bigger. Where especially with where we're at, where hockey sticks is very really difficult as well, where there's over 100 SKUs for each product line. There's different flexes, there's different curves, there's different hands, there's different sizes, and there's so many different variants when it comes into ordering products through manufacturers. And our biggest problem since the beginning of our company is we don't have enough inventory. We're sold out way too much. And hockey is one of those industries that this is the worst problem to have by far, because sticks are breaking over and over and over again. And that's kind of been our scenarios where we're trying to bring in cash to buy more inventory. And then sometimes it's not all good cash. Sometimes we'll take a loan and it's sharks, and it's kind of eating away our company over and over again. And we have to keep balancing those scenarios every single day to survive. And we have marketing expenses, we have payroll expenses, we have cost of goods expenses that a lot of companies don't deal with. And all of those people will see you see all of the accolades we've won as a business, all the stuff I have kind of personally got from the business, but you don't see that we have bills on bills on bills every single day that we have to keep up with. And we've been able to consistently make it to this point, day in, day out, just by being resilient. And I would say business is such a weird way to say this, but I feel like it's truly a gambling game. Like you're gambling every single day. And that's kind of been our way of being able to get to the point where we're at in this business, is just by gambling every single day. Like we're taking a risk, we're taking a bet. Even when it comes to the staff we have in the company, they're taking a bet on the company being here, because we're a startup. Like we don't have 100 years on us to guarantee that this is going to happen. And that's kind of why we've been able to get to the point we're at, where I have a really good organization, a really good team around me ultimately.
It's an amazing reflection. I like your point of view on kind of on a daily risk, a daily gamble. It's not the odds are not that the same as you would have like in a casino. Like we're not really talking about frivolous gambling. Like this is
Yeah.
truly calculated risk. The gamble really has to do with, where do I put my attention? Where do I put my resources? Did I make the right call? And you're dealing with people's lives, you're dealing with livelihoods, you're dealing with customers that value you, and you happen to be in like a category of impulse where I need a stick. Like if I can't get it from you, I got to get it from somewhere. And like that's true risk, that's true departure. Your clawback to previous customers when not having inventory, like that's got to be a stressful moment as well. I think what's interesting, and I love the category of manufacturing, consumer packaged goods. I love food and beverage because it's so far different from the service business that I run. Like the combat that you guys are in, that's different from what I'm doing. And I find that category to be so rigorous. And what I find is that, it's an old adage: if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone. And so I wonder, how'd you build a team? How did you build, like, do you have any co-founders? Did you build this with anybody that has experience? Like, what are some of the things that you've done structurally for the business to navigate the complexity of the category that you were in? Because I mean, man, God bless. I hope it's not 100% all on you. I have a co-founder as well. And so I wonder, how do you delegate shared struggle as the things you're trying to build?
Yeah, you know what? I'm the full owner of this company. When we first started, I didn't take on any co-founders. I didn't bring anybody else in the company. And early on, I was able to bring some of my closest friends, which everyone says is such a bad thing to do. I was able to bring them on and hire them within the company, and they were able to work some weeks for free because we didn't have it. Like some weeks they were able to work for free because we didn't have it. And there's a lot of them, I'd say half of them are still here to this day, still with the same mission, and they've been able to grow with the company. And that's kind of been those two individuals have been here since the beginning, helping us grow. And since that moment, we have been able to hire some people that have stayed really long with us and have had that same passion. And that's been the thing that's kind of separated us and been helping us grow is we're really good people within our team. That's something I'm really happy about. I'm really passionate about the organization we've developed where I know with the team that I have built and the team that we have here that there's no losing. Like losing's not an option with the people we have. And especially when it comes to me on the founder side, it comes down to three big things. Like especially for myself, I have to bring the vision, and I have to find money every single time out of the wind, whatever. I have to find some money, and I have to keep bringing in very good people. There's only really good three things that I need to keep bringing in as a founder, as a CEO, and we have been able to do that to this point. Sometimes I've made a bunch of mistakes. That's why we're able to fix some of these. And we've had to fire a lot of staff. We've had to bring in a bunch of bad capital. And sometimes my idea is not 100% correct. But like it's that innovation that we're able to move and innovate as fast as possible kind of helped us.
I love the story and I love the grit. So much of business is just about us gritting our teeth and like bearing the load and not necessarily revealing the struggle to the people that we care about that are running this business. I think you're doing it with some charm and I think you're really doing it with some transparency and like you're lucky to have a team that is just on board. Not every business has that. Some people run businesses where folks are showing up to work out of necessity. They could go work somewhere else. Like I don't have to be here. You're lucky in that position. But so much of entrepreneurship is actually protecting those that we love and care about from the reality. Like, man, if my wife and kids knew a fraction of the shit that I have to go through to try and put food on the table and make a living, they probably would encourage me to go back to my cushy six-figure job. They probably would not be so supportive of this road because, man, you could just easily reveal your cards and demonstrate the absolute pain. Like this is not for the faint of heart. You talked a little bit earlier that like not everybody's cut out for entrepreneurship. I wrinkle that differently. I believe that everybody is an entrepreneur. Everybody is entrepreneurial. Even just going and making new friends and putting yourself in new situations and like evangelizing yourself, being your own self starter, like whatever. Everybody's got a little dose of being entrepreneurial. Those of us that can build a business, there's a fraction, right? A fraction of those that exist can actually build a business that withstands the test of time. And it's likely because of those folks' ability to grit and bear the pain of building anything. Like build a family. That's mostly pain. Like most of the things that
Definitely.
we build that we love just come from a pain, from a point of pain. And so, man, I love the conversation. As we typically have these conversations, they do drum up things that you would be remiss not to talk about on the show, things that I would hate for you to walk away and be like, man, I wish we would have covered that topic. So I wonder, anything come to mind that you'd like to cover that we really haven't talked about just yet?
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurship. it's probably my last point, but a lot of entrepreneurship, you have to have a lot of passion for it ultimately. And on top of that, like I would say I make this is such the weirdest thing for myself is that I will sit there and create pain for myself every single day to be successful. And I'll take on a bunch of bills we can't afford to be successful because that pressure is what builds our company. And I will put that within our team and I'll put that within our organization. And that's kind of been the scenario that's helped us get to that point. And that's probably the thing that's pushed me every single day is by putting as much pressure on myself, putting as much pressure on the team to perform and making sure that we're almost like a hockey team. Like that's kind of how we operate is where if one person goes down, the goalie goes down, we all lose. If one of our forwards are out, the other team's always going to be on a power play trying to beat us. So everybody's super important within our organization. That's something I'm super passionate about as well.
I really like that. That's probably over all the episodes, I don't really have anybody that's ever really associated business back to something that kind of we've all experienced, which is like that team camaraderie. And not everybody had the opportunity to play youth sports, even at a very low level. Not everybody had the opportunity to even progress with that, but like bringing it back to the team, or if like if you're a veteran or formerly in the military or active duty, like salute to you, but like you really understand what it means to move as a unit, to watch each other's back, to watch everybody's front, to help us make collective decisions. Everybody's got their specialty. We trust everybody on this team to own their domain and do the right thing. But man, to like think about the business from the perspective of a team where ducks fly together, man. Like we all are moving towards the same mission. Everybody is accountable for everybody else. If one of us is subpar, we're all underperformant. Like to have that as kind of a company culture feels original. Feels maybe not unique. I'm sure other companies operate that way. My company operates from like a SEAL team perspective. Like everybody is independently highly formidable. But like the whole company does not depend on one individual. Maybe that account depends on that one individual. But if we all come together as one large team, we're even that much more successful. But each individual is a full spectrum, fully capable individual. A little bit different from like the true team analogy that you're talking about. But I think even having that in your ethos, having that in your culture, making sure everybody else is kind of on board with that same ethos goes a really long way. It's like
Yeah.
we're not talking about building a family. This is not a family. Like this
Yeah.
is
Oh,
actually a
exactly.
team. And if you don't
Yeah.
show up to play, if you don't show up to practice, we all suffer. It's not
Yeah.
a team. I don't love that analogy. So I love where you brought that in.
Yeah, no,
It's definitely
exactly, and
important.
we're going to war together every single day,
Yes.
and, like, even within our organization, I think, God has blessed me so much within my team, especially where we have I go to church with almost all of my staff. Like, that's how we're able to operate as an organization, and I think they've been put in my life. We didn't, that just ended up happening where we're able to connect on so many different things, where we're such a team where we move together no matter what we do. And we're able to build deeper relationships through a bunch of things as well.
I love that, man. As we round third base, I always love for my guests to plug the things that they're working on. Where can people get in touch with you? How can people get involved in the things that you care about?
Yeah, you can get in touch with me anywhere, Zachariah Thomas on any platform, Zach Thomas. Most importantly, Swift Hockey, Swift Sports on all platforms. We're kind of branching out into a bunch of different sports at this point, as most of them have the exact same problem as hockey had. I didn't realize that for a while, but most of the sports have the exact same problem. So that's kind of where our company is going, and we're going to continue to adapt and innovate across the world and across sports.
Wow. I love that, and I'm sure the audience will be looking out. I have quite a bench of Canadian guests who have all really, one way or another, really talked about their hockey experience. So I wouldn't be surprised if you get a couple new customers coming out of the show for today. But Zachariah Thomas, founder of Swift, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your grit. I appreciate your founder first, founder led approach to business. I appreciate how you're making this entire thing your problem. There's nobody coming to save us, man. There is nobody coming to help. It's up to us to wake up every day and grit and bear the problems that we've built. And so I appreciate you being transparent and candid. And man, I cannot thank you enough for joining this episode of Forward to Extraordinary.
Appreciate that. And happy to be here.
See you, man.